and welcome to the Financial Bunny TV. My name is Nicolette Mashile, also known as your Financial Bunny. Guys, it is such a special moment for me sitting with Melinda French Gates, philanthropist, co-founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, author, nonna. Oh, thank you so much for making time.
Thanks for doing this, Nicolette.
I absolutely appreciate it. And I want to kick off our conversation with talking a little bit about a quote from your book, right? You say, when we lift up women, we lift up humanity. Such a powerful statement. If you can just break it down for us.
Sure. We know from good research these days that if you invest in a woman, her kids are healthier and the family is wealthier. So I always say when you invest in a woman, you're actually investing in everyone else because she puts that money into future generations.
And when do you notice that for the first time? When does it become so special and important for you to help women with their economic power?
Because I would be out talking with women in so many different places in the world, and they would say to me, you know, if I have a little bit of income, if they're in India, they'd say, my mother-in-law looks at me completely differently.
Absolutely.
Or a woman in Africa said, if I have money to help my son get a new tire for his bike, he looks at me differently. Or if I bring income into my household, then my husband looks at me differently.
Yes.
So they were speaking to me about, really, they weren't calling it, but they had more power. They were more seen when they had financial resources.
I absolutely love that. And maybe let's talk a little bit about what have been some of the challenges for women to be able to access that economic power.
Well, first of all, there are many places on the continent of Africa where women aren't registered on the civil registry, so that's one thing.
Yes.
But two, you know, if there's a phone in the family, we need to make sure that women have their own bank account, even if they don't have their own phone. But if they have their own bank account, if the husband has a bank account but she has her own, then she's in control of it. And so that's one of the pieces that I think we need to look at more, because women know that, you know, they have ways of hiding and saving their money, but we always know if you have a bank account, no matter what country you're in, you're more likely to save it and then have it when you need it.
Yes, and it's yours, and I think that gives you some level of ownership.
Absolutely, because then you get to decide how you spend it, which you might spend it differently than your son or your daughter or your husband, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And bring it back to this year's theme, right? I want to talk a little bit about, because it feels to me like a bit of a double-edged sword. You know, access to great health care. Because of economic power, we can't access it as some women. And then also on the other side, if you don't access that good health care, you lose out on economic opportunities. Can you give us maybe just a glimpse of that relationship between the two?
It's hugely important. So I always say that if a woman isn't doing well, like if her health's not good, she can't be well, right? You've got to do well to be well, and vice versa. You got to be well to do well. So that's why I think with healthcare, what we know from so many countries is if we can bring healthcare out to where women live, those community healthcare workers that can make sure she has the right messages, that know when she's running into a problem, if she's got anemia, get her somewhere where she can get IV iron, so that if she feels well, then she can make sure that she's working in the informal sector or the formal sector. But you can't go to work if you don't feel good.
True, that's very true. And then how do we make sure that these women can access information on reproductive health to improve their economic opportunities?
Well, again, when a woman can take the decision when and whether to have children, everything changes for her. Her in her entire household. Again, we know the families are wealthier, they're healthier, they do better over time. So again, we need to make sure that community health care workers get the messages out to women and also ensure they then have access to these commodities because they're not expensive.
Yeah. What are some of the ideas? I'm just thinking about at home, like for instance, South Africa, getting out healthcare workers into a mobile clinic, into the schools.
That definitely works. If you take a mobile clinic out where people live or out where teenagers are gathering after school, teenagers will come. They want the information. And there's not a young girl I haven't talked to that hasn't said, oh, when I got educated about contraceptives, they're like, of course I told all my friends about it, right? Like one of the things a woman told me once in Africa, and I thought, oh, that's so true. She said, come on, we talk. We all talk to each other. So you give us some information that's valid, we're going to tell each other about it. I mean, there are these informal networks,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're also seeing a lot more young people across the continent getting messages on their phone, like creative messages about, you know, here's how you use a condom, here's why you would use a condom. And so I think social media gives us an opportunity to break the stigma of this and to say, look, we can put the power in girls' hands, and it should be in their hands.
And outside of it being a drive for economic power for women, have you guys found any resistance from parents? I think from a cultural perspective, it's always like a thing we try to run away from having reproductive conversations.
Yes, I think we do, because it feels uncomfortable.
Yes.
And yet, on the converse side, if a young girl becomes pregnant, then it's really uncomfortable for the family, and it has all kinds of effects for the family and for her. So I think these more covert settings sometimes, like where teens gather in a community center, that's a great place for an educator to come in, right? Or again, on their phones, getting messages from other people who are credible and are talking to them about their bodies. People need to first understand their own body, and then, okay, what can I do to keep myself healthy?
Absolutely. Melinda, thank you so much for all of the work that you guys do. But before we can let you go, this channel is called The Financial Bunny, so we do quite a lot of financial education, money management, personal finance. And I've got to ask you this question.
Okay.
What is the one money lesson that you learned as a child that you've carried through into your adult years, and now that you're a nonna, that you're going to pass on to your grandchild?
Save, save,
Save. Oh, yes. Hallelujah. And the church said amen. Thank you so much. Again, absolutely fantastic. She is a great woman doing so much for all of us. Guys, 2030 is around the corner. Let's get working together. We definitely can. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.